Hello. Good afternoon. I'm Chris. I'm from PlayFab, and as was noted, I'm here to talk about in-game chat. Now, many of you might have stopped by at our table outside, and I got a couple of questions. What is PlayFab? So PlayFab, it's a startup that was acquired by Microsoft about 14 months ago. Small team in Seattle that now is a bigger team in Redmond. And we kind of are trying to fill out some gaps in Microsoft's game dev story. So many folks know us from the work we do in Xbox and Xbox Live. Game devs have probably used things like Visual Studio or Azure. We're a new group, and what we're doing is adding a whole bunch of cloud services specifically for game development. So things like sign-in, basic login flows, but also automation, player management, and what we're talking about today, which is multiplayer and game chat. So whole suite of services. And a key inflection point that PlayFab is delivering for Microsoft is that we're cross-platform and identity agnostic. So we're building services for Xbox games and PC games, but obviously a lot of people play games on cell phones, on iPads, on Nintendo Switches, and so we want to build services that can reach those game developers and reach those players as well. How many people play some kind of multiplayer game? I'm going to ask the one question. Oh, good hands. So multiplayer is great. People like to play with other people. It is a nice part of life. But obviously it can be challenging to communicate inside games, especially certain games really need some sort of collaboration. If you need everyone to go left, you need everyone to do a task, collaborating can be incredibly important to having a great experience, and can also be difficult. And we think in PlayFab, but also very broadly at Microsoft, we think about there's an audience of roughly 2 billion gamers, people who are out there trying to play games, and roughly in that 2 billion, I think it's on the order of, it's a lot smaller than, on the order of 50 million folks who have difficulty speaking or potentially nonverbal. And then also, I knew it. See, I jumped one. Boom. And then also 200 million gamers out of that 2 billion who are deaf or hard of hearing. So that's 250 million plus gamers who are going to have potentially some mismatch when they're trying to use in-game chat features. And there's two capabilities that we in PlayFab, working with our friends in Xbox, have been working on to make this experience more accessible. One is speech to text. Some people call this transcription or closed captioning of in-game chat. The other one is text to speech. So having folks type or enter a phrase, and then that drives speech synthesis or a synthesized voice. And I'm going to show a quick video. I think one of our friends, our colleagues at Turn 10 did a talk earlier this morning. We're very lucky at PlayFab to benefit from experience and prior work from Xbox and Xbox Live, as well as Xbox Game Studios. Several Xbox games already have some of these accessibility technologies in them. And what we've been able to do is broaden them significantly. So for example, everything we've done so far only supports English, versus our new service supports roughly 30 languages. And obviously, again, we're a cross-platform service, so we're extending beyond Xbox and PC. But also, if you go out and try our booth, you'll see we have Switch, iOS, and Android, and other platforms that we're working on. So we're going to have a moment of technical risk. Oh, while I try to get the video. Okay. Oh, everything's working great so far. Okay, it's almost working great. I'm also going to say, like having listened to the conference the whole day, we're already going to make the text in this game bigger. We already know. Yeah. So, for sure. Okay, I'm cheating.
That's the mouse right there, if that would help.
Oh, that would help. Thank you, Tara. Never mind, did not help. I'm going to Oh, okay, there we go. We're making progress. Except it's not. I really want it to. It did. And you don't want to know why? Because I have to exit slideshow mode. So that's what we're going to do. Boom. Oh, sweet. Okay, and now. Oh, yeah, they can see us from the
We should do that, yeah.
So this is gameplay footage from Sea of Thieves. And you can see up top in fantastically small font. It looks better when you're playing in an Xbox, but it's still pretty small. But this is an experience you can try today on Xbox or PC, where you have real-time transcription of in-game chat. Okay. Oh. That was faster. Okay. So there's two aspects of the work we've been doing. So the first part is design guidance. And so that's what we've learned from our end-to-end implementations in actual Xbox and PC games. And then there's also a service, a cloud service that we're building called PlayFab Party that provides the tools that help make this as easy as we can. So first, actually, Evelyn Thomas, people I think know Evelyn Thomas. She's been helping with all the design stuff. She's in the back. So we're going to go through a couple of design guidelines that we have also published online. A lot of it is just getting into a bit more detail than some of the accessibility guidelines we've seen in other places. Sweet. Oh, awesome. So a couple of key elements. First, we're going to talk about the transcription experience, the closed captioning. So there's several things game developers have to pay attention to. So first, indicating who's actually speaking, the player ID, identifying the input source. So is the user speaking or are they typing? The actual message itself, as well as preferably having partial transcription. So as a user speaks, having the subtitles effectively build over time. Making sure it's readable, so size and color. And lastly, positioning, making sure it's in a good place on the screen and potentially is dynamic and controllable by the end user. There's two options for games today to try to build that closed captioning experience. One, on PC and Xbox in particular, there are built-in APIs that are actually built for game subtitles. So that's used by some of the first-party games, and I think a couple of third-party games as well, especially on console. The trouble with using the platform user experience, it makes things a lot easier, but obviously it's only available on some platforms, and potentially folks want to align the user experience to their own game design. So the other option is to do what Sea of Thieves did, where you have a custom text window that can match game design, which is really nice. The other benefit is, depending on your game engine and your overall architecture, you can potentially reuse that user experience control across platforms, so that can be very helpful. So a couple of, again, some of the details. So first, player ID. That's the thing before the colon, who's actually speaking. Like having a string, the gamer tag, if it's a Xbox Live or Steam gamer tag, they probably have an ID. That's kind of a default option that can be very good. But potentially, if you have a lot of users, say in a 20-person match, it can potentially be hard to keep track of all the users and all their names. So sometimes iconography can be helpful. The trouble about iconography is that it's important to have diverse icons and not just use potentially color as an indication of who's who. Have a variety of icons. Here's a couple of examples. Yes. So I have a couple of examples, potentially have user-provided icons or otherwise provide for a lot of diversity so people can represent themselves in the chat session. And then also, because if you do a highly accessible user experience, you're going to have people who are talking, but you'll also have folks who are typing, a text chat input that's driving the speech synthesis. And so make sure to indicate the input method of the remote user. So was it text or was it a microphone? I'm going to have a drink. Oh. Another key question, obviously once you've got the player identified, you have to make sure the whole window is highly readable. So make sure it has good contrast, it's roughly a good shape and size. Another key element is, again, sizing. Gotta make sure it's big enough. Yeah, I think it's 8-point font. We gotta make it bigger. Make sure the font is a good font. Make sure it's dyslexia friendly. Sans serif works big on different kinds of screens. Another thing, this sounds obvious until it isn't. Make sure that the text is visible on the types of backgrounds it's going to be existing on. You can't see that, that's on purpose, so make sure you have high contrast screens. And then one of the last notes is about positioning. So we've got quite a few different demos that you can see, and we've all have different positioning strategies. And if you go see the first-party games that have tried this out today, you'll also see they have different positioning strategies. It's just important to make sure that you position the subtitles window in a place that responds to all of the different types of gameplay experiences you might have. You might have a mini map that comes up every now and then. Don't put it in that same corner. If you have an interesting cutscene where people really want to look in that corner, think about moving the window. And again, potentially providing options for that. We think a lot about this kind of 9-quadrant display. Obviously, generally, folks put in the 8 quadrants on the side. So which one of the 8 quadrants does the user want it? And these are kind of the controls that we've done on Xbox. A big thing that happens on console, but also on mobile platforms, is that there's going to be an on-screen keyboard. So be thoughtful about that, especially if you have a text input experience, which we do recommend. Where does it go? These are all things we found out through experience, so making sure that the window is potentially dynamically placed, or otherwise thinking about, well, text is going to come up, making sure they can see the screen. And the other note is potentially provide a quick keyboard shortcut for showing the subtitle window on and off. So just snap read, snap off, and that way potentially if an end user configures it to be a really large, highly readable subtitle screen, they can enjoy that experience and then just kind of tip it off after they've read it. So a couple notes would close out speech to text. So another thing is on Xbox and PC, but also on other platforms, potentially take cues from the general accessibility settings that a player might have input. So for example, if a player said that they wanted to enjoy text narration, think about having a default that has some of these capabilities turned on so they don't even have to discover them, and also respect these settings in general. In general, when we've done user research, one of the hardest parts of enabling an accessible chat experience is the settings. So I think this came up also in earlier talks. Building accessible menus and accessible settings can be a challenge. It's something that people need to think about very early on. Create an explicit ease of access section in your settings and make it consistent. Make all of your accessibility settings in that page or in that window. And lastly, potentially obvious, but also a thing that people have to go do is remember settings. So every single time a game starts up, don't ask the user to re-enter these settings. Keep it persistent, potentially use cloud storage. So if they're playing on different devices, that they get the same experience right off the bat and they don't have to go negotiate with settings again. So the next chapter of the design section is about text-to-speech. This will be a little shorter. This is about users putting in text and getting speech synthesis out. Couple of key. Sometimes I press enter. OK. So a couple of things. Most people should not do this. Do not make your own keyboard. Some people, like I heard earlier, like folks can treat game design as very personal and they want everything to look, if you're building Sea of Thieves, everything wants to be boaty. There's a limit. There's a reasonable limit to that. Keyboard is a good one. Really think about if you want to just use the platform keyboard. Wherever that is, it's probably a pretty good keyboard. In general, just doing text chat is not a great solution. Typing text on any platform, even on a PC, is not necessarily something that people want to do. It's especially in a high-paced game. Typing things isn't great. And so we think a lot about what we call quick chat, or otherwise having pre-populated phrases or other visual kind of chat experiences that can allow users to communicate a lot faster than just typing in words. If you are going to do text chat, make sure you have a text box, text window. You'll probably want some kind of button combination or other control to allow that text box to come in and out very quickly. Again, it's a big text box, and so users are only going to want to type when they want to type. Also offer an alternative. And lastly, allow users, the user who is typing, to select the synthesized voice that represents them in the session. So there's generally a variety of synthesized voice options with the system we're building, but also other systems allow the user who's typing to pick out which, to hear them, to hear samples, and to pick which one that they like. Double-clicking on quick chat, again, pre-populated or custom phrases can dramatically simplify usage of text chat and make it way more accessible. People are way more likely to use text chat if you give them a couple of options like good job, go left, ooh, go left. Way more likely to use text chat if you give them a couple of key options, and also think about other in-game communication tools like a location waypoint that you can mark. That in combination with a simple text chat blurb like location, go here, can communicate a lot of intent very, very quickly. A lot easier than just having the user say, go here to that place in the corner. Like, it can be a lot more complicated. So consider all those things. And we're coming up on the end of the design section. So key takeaways, if you're doing speech to text, the closed captioning experience, making sure you have legible, dynamic captions with as many options as you can give the end user as possible. If you're doing text to speech, text input, making sure that you go beyond just naive keyboard and think about things like phrase list and quick chat so that the input experience is better. And lastly, in general, just think about settings. That will step people up. And so having good settings that are persistent, easy to navigate, and having a good relationship with other platform settings around accessibility can make it a lot easier for users to discover these capabilities and use them effectively. So the next section is going to talk a little bit about the service that we've been building, this new Azure service. It's called PlayFab Party. It is a party. And our thought process in the service engineering team is focused on how do we enable game devs to build dynamic and inclusive multiplayer experiences. I will spend a little bit of time talking about dynamic. That's not quite the focus of our show here, but it is important to build really fast multiplayer experiences. And then we'll talk also about, obviously, the inclusive stuff. So what is a dynamic multiplayer experience? We think about helping game devs accomplish an activity loop of multiplayer, not in an addicting way, in a fun and reasonable way. The first step is matchmaking. So we want players to be able to find other players in what we call a balanced amount of time. Generally, it has to be less than 25 seconds, or users are probably not going to stick around. But it's important it's balanced in the sense that users find players of the same skill, it's an interesting game, and also we do think about this having rules that potentially use a user's communication preference and aggregating users along those preferences. So take the right amount of time to find users an interesting match. Uh-oh. Once you've got users together, you want to connect them to an interesting gameplay experience, either a server or a party. You want those users to have a great time playing, potentially for hours or days, hopefully with bathroom breaks. But either way, we want to make sure that can play for a good long time. And then after they've accomplished an interesting gameplay moment, we want them to be rewarded very, very quickly and to kind of come back at the end of it and say, maybe I want to go play again. And so we think about, again, a very fast, a very reliable multiplayer loop that's cross-platform, it's service-driven, and it's as fast as the gameplay experience kind of allows for. And so PlayFab, again, is a broad suite of services for game devs. There's several of them that are focused on multiplayer. The one we're talking about is Party. So if you are going to GDC, you can come visit our booth and find out about our other services. Party is the big one here, focused on communication. So what does Party do? It is not only an opportunity to drink champagne, it is also a system for connecting player devices through an encrypted low latency network. So we use a DTLS-like transport to connect devices. So if you go to our booth, we are connecting devices using Azure networking. So we use that networking layer to do game networking. So that's one application. So the games you'll see will actually use the network to send packets to each other and accomplish a synchronized game state. But you can also attach chat endpoints to the network, and that does voice and text chat. And the key sort of simplicity or the accessibility aspect of the service is how we've partnered with Azure Cognitive Services to deliver real-time transcription and speech synthesis across, I think, 30 languages and locales, and it is fairly trivial to use. I'm actually going to work through a couple of code snippets, so you see how to turn it on. And once you get users into these parties, voice chat with these capabilities is really kind of a button, or it's an API call that can be turned into a button. A couple more details about the party service. So building a modern 21st century communications fabric, we want to protect users against network attacks. So one of the problems that some voice systems in the past have had is that if you're playing with someone new, that they will attack your house. They'll get your IP address, and then they'll start DDoSing your house, and you'll be like, why did my home networking get bad? Because I played Halo. And so we're building in protections in the service so that users have a secure networking session and a secure communication session. All traffic in this service is relayed, so it provides, again, a very low latency connection using Azure endpoints all around the world. It dynamically scales with almost no administration for the game dev, so they can go from, say, two users on a Sunday to 2 million on a Friday evening, and everything just scales automatically. And lastly, the way that folks get access to the service is with an interoperable C++ SDK that's available for a whole host of platforms: Windows, Xbox, iOS, Android, and Switch. So some basic engineering flows for using the service. So first, you have a player, a human being. You log that player into PlayFab. So PlayFab is not a consumer-facing identity. It's not like Xbox Live. It's not like Nintendo or PlayStation Network or Steam. It is infrastructure that lets game studios ship across a variety of platforms and variety of social networks. But we do have this kind of simple underlying identity framework to help game developers manage their users. So you have a player, you log them in, you create a party, you join the user to the party, and then you have a network descriptor. It's an address, effectively, for the party on the world. And you share that network descriptor using potentially a matchmaking system or invites. So folks who do multiplayer invites, you will post this as like the body of the invite message. And using that network descriptor, remote users can then join the party and do networking and voice chat. The sample that we are publishing next week, that's the demo you can also see out there, that uses all PlayFab systems. But again, a lot of folks will use invite systems or potentially the directory systems from a particular social platform. And once all the users have that descriptor, they can join the network and do interesting things. Some of those interesting things, again, talking about the voice and text chat, it really is just these two APIs. So this activates voice chat by setting the input and output audio devices. So in this example, it's automatic, but hypothetically, if you have multiple headsets, you can pick which headset is bound to the system. Once you bind an audio device to a chat endpoint, the audio just starts flowing. Basically, we get what people are saying, we opus encode it, and then we do a whole bunch of things to put it on effectively on to the network, all under the covers. The speech-to-text capability, that's handled just by saying you want to turn it on. So you call this API, and then all of a sudden, you will start getting transcripts for anything people say. I didn't show the API where you set the language code. That's there too. I should have probably put that in a slide. But yeah, you set which language code the player wants to be transcribed as, one of roughly 30, and that will drive the transcription behavior. And that was how you turn on transcription. You might be wondering, how do you actually get the transcription? So there's a whole host of notifications that are passed to the application, and transcriptions being received is just one of them. So it's a quick snippet. You type a notification equals transcription. It has a string object. You get that string, and you pump it into your UI framework that's posting that window. Text-to-speech is another simple API on a chat endpoint. You take the text the user has typed in, or again, if it's a phrase list that was pre-populated, you take the string, you put it in this API, and then all the users with the appropriate communication relationship will hear that text being spoken. So, yes. So we've got roughly, we're able to partner very closely with Azure Cognitive Services. So basically every language that Azure supports, we support. So that's roughly 30 plus languages and locales for the transcription. I will say, to be fully honest, I think it's really 14 languages and 30 locales. Like English counts 4 times. So, but it's a good amount, I think. There's like English UK, English Australian, English America, I don't know. And then text-to-speech synthesis, there's roughly 75 languages and locales. And I think it's covering, 75 voices over 45 languages and locales. And that, the fact that there's more voices than languages allows for a bit of diversity. If you have obviously multiple English speakers, that they can have, I think there's roughly 6 or 7 different US English voices. But this is still an area where we found that people actually want there to be a lot more voices so that folks can be more personalized. And I'm going to show a quick video. We're not going to dig too far into this because it's still an area where we're engineering. But you can imagine now that we've got transcription, real-time transcription and speech synthesis capabilities, that we can also start pushing on barriers like translation in particular. So in certain markets like Europe or East Asia, you want users to be able to matchmake with each other, but they might not necessarily speak the same language. And so real-time translation is a potentially easy way for folks to play with each other. And I'm going to show a quick demo of what we've been working on kind of along those lines. All right, everyone remember the video? That's my risky. Okay. Oh, I have to exit. I learned this, and then I didn't. Oh, okay. There it
Yo
is.
soy muy malo en eso. ¿Cuáles armas son buenas en este juego?
So what you're seeing, it's a little more readable in this one, which is nice, is a user speaking Spanish, and it's getting captioned into English. And so that's happening in real time. It's using the same system that we're building and demoing now. And we intend to have this available in the summer. So that can help not only, it's a different kind of accessibility, but it helps more people find each other and have a great gaming experience. I'm going to keep on going.
The rockets seem powerful.
Another thing you might see that's already available in the transcription experience, but you can see it very clearly here in translation, is the progressive transcription. So if you're saying elephant, you'll get the transcription that says L, and then the font will eventually finish the word correctly. And this is especially more important for certain languages that have different kind of typography. So you'll see how the resolution of the text is improving as I finish a sentence or the people finish the sentence.
Okay, I will not see you.
你是来自哪个国家的？
I am from the United
Uh-huh.
States.
So again, I think it's working a whole host of languages that supports translation. I'm going to go back to the slide where. So yeah, translation, and that will be coming in August of this year. We'll be supporting, I think, the same number of languages, sorry, slightly fewer languages. I think it's 18 languages and locales for the text-to-text translation, and about that number for the other types of translation later in the year. Oh, sweet. Sorry, I want to see my notes, which went away. Who needs notes? I don't need them. We're going without notes. So that's kind of pulling it together. So I think one of the things that all of you have already heard is about how inclusion is driving our work in sort of our experiences and our games and our platform, that's Xbox, and our hardware. What we hope you're beginning to see is how we're thinking about these challenges in our services as well, and building cloud services that support accessibility scenarios and allow more people to play higher value games with more people. And if you're interested in more information, you can come to we're out there demoing this stuff. We'll also be at GDC at the Microsoft booth. You can find out more at playfab.com/multiplayer. If you want to try this out, the preview for PC and Xbox is publicly available next Monday. We're getting the NuGet packages published any second now. But you can just download it on the internet. If you're interested in the other platforms or just want to talk to us about your game, feel free to email us at helloplayfab@microsoft.com. And otherwise, I hope that was fun.